Hey everybody, welcome to Bird Notice. Billy here. Leading off, Colton Cowser is optioned to AAA when Aaron Hicks is activated from the injured list. Ryan McKenna is recalled when Aaron Hicks goes back onto the injured list. And the Yankees are below 500 this late in the season for the first time since 1995. But Ryan, what episode number is this?
Well, Billy, this is the second retired number in 3 episodes that hasn't been worn for a long time, as it belonged, of course, to Hall of Famer and Masson analyst Jim Palmer, who retired in 1984. The number I'm talking about is number 22. He recently got out of the hospital after battling COVID, so that was nice to see. A quick little history lesson about him. Jim Palmer signed with the O's for $50,000 in 1963. He made his major league debut at the age of 19, 2 years after that. He went on to pitch for 19 years in total, all with the O's. He started 521 games. He won 268 of those with a career ERA of 2.86 and a 1.18 whip. He won the Cy Young Award in 73, 75, and 76, and also finished second twice. He won 4 Gold Gloves and was named an All Star 6 times. He was the only Oriole to be a member of all 3 of their World Series championship squads. A fun fact, he never allowed a grand slam, nor did he ever surrender back to back home runs. He also threw a complete game shutout at the age of 20 in the 1966 World Series, defeating Sandy Koufax, and he's the youngest to accomplish that feat. He began his broadcasting career as an active player, doing color commentary for the playoffs on ABC starting in 1978. And since I mentioned Hall of Fame voting on the last episode, I have to point out he only received votes from 92.6% of the writers in his first year of eligibility, because that's just a thing they do. So that's my little lesson on Jim Palmer. Do you have another 22?
No, I have more on Jim Palmer. I found out on the Adam Jones podcast last week that he was adopted. I was surprised to learn that.
Yeah, his Wikipedia page says that. I didn't get into it, but it's kind of an interesting story.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did an apology focusing on Jim Palmer's 1984 release a few weeks back. So I didn't have too much to work with here. So I looked up his IMDb page where Palmer has 5 acting credits. In 1988 as a baseball announcer in The Naked Gun, a movie we discussed on a previous episode. A 1996 episode of Arliss, a show that I love that is pretty much loathed by everybody. The George Lopez Show in 2002, where George has a dream that his bobbleheads tell him he's being too hard on his son. The bobbleheads are Steve Garvey, Jim Palmer, Rod Carew, and Joe Morgan. An episode of Commander in Chief in 2005, a show that lasted 1 season, starring Gina Davis as the president. One more in 2012 with Veep, a show that was one of the best of the decade in the 2010s. Killer Cast. This episode takes place at Camden Yards, where Selena Meyer was attending a healthy eating event. With the Tides on a 2-week road trip and the Orioles on the West Coast, I actually watched a couple of these episodes. I watched the George Lopez episode, the Veep episode, and the Arliss episode. On Arliss, he just played an extra. He shouldn't have even been credited. He didn't have any lines. The George Lopez show was kind of funny. They took the baseball players' heads and posed them on the bobbleheads.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's all I got on Jim Palmer's acting. I'm surprised he never did a soap opera. He seems like a soap opera kind of guy.
I'm surprised you watched all those episodes. That's real dedication.
Well, Veep was great. Like have you ever seen Veep?
No, I've heard good things, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I hadn't watched it in years. Just watching that one episode made me want to watch it again. The George Lopez show, I'm sure I'll never watch again. And I've seen all of Arliss. It's bad, but it's good at the same time.
Isn't he like a sports agent or something in that one?
Yeah, he plays Arliss Michaels. He's Al Michaels' cousin. He plays a sports agent.
Yeah, I've heard of that show, but have not seen that either.
Yeah, I've never seen or heard of anybody else who likes it other than me. I used to race home from work to watch it.
Sounds like you might be the only one who did that.
Yeah. This episode I watched was the pilot episode with Jim Palmer, and it wasn't good.
I guess it was good enough to get picked up, though, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the point of a pilot episode?
Yeah, you usually have to give the pilot episodes a pass on whether they're good or not.
Right. Well, that's true dedication from you. On this West Coast trip, the O's have gone 4-2 since we last recorded, and that gave you some time to squeeze in some of those before the games start. Should we get into the Padres?
Yeah, so we found it in the Bird Notice budget to send you on location this week.
Yes, out of the Bird Notice budget, that was me at Petco Park. It was a fun time, despite the O's only winning one of the games, but nice little ballpark they got there and great weather in San Diego, so can't complain about that.
Yeah, you got to see Grayson Rodriguez versus Yu Darvish in game one.
Yeah, and just quickly, you kind of called the Padres being bad a while ago, and I didn't really see that, but they entered the series at 56-62. And if you just look at the numbers as somebody who doesn't really follow them much, it's kind of hard to comprehend how their record is that bad because they've had really strong offensive seasons from Juan Soto, Ha-Sung Kim, Fernando Tatis, and Manny Machado, as well as Xander Bogaerts. But their runs per game is exactly league average. They also have some pretty solid starters. Blake Snell is leading the entire league with a 2.63 ERA before this game, but he also had the most walks with 76. So that was an interesting combo. Also, Joe Musgrove and Michael Walker were good. Josh Hader's been lights out in the bullpen. So, just looking at the numbers, it almost seems like the Padres have half of a good lineup and good pitching, and for whatever reason, they just don't get the breaks. But Grayson continued doing pretty well and kind of added to the Padres' woes in this first game on Friday. Not Friday,
Another
Monday.
another thing with the Padres is they have a good manager. Also, Bob Melvin is a well-respected manager. He's been around forever with quite a few teams. They botched the manager hire and then they rectified it with Melvin, and it still hasn't worked out. But if you're in the National League, you do not want to see this team in the playoffs.
No, they looked really good outside of this first game. They really took it to the O's in the last couple. I was not really surprised, but I think I was surprised at how they just looked better than the O's. It wasn't like even that close in the other two games, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's one of the few times this season that the Orioles, I don't want to say looked out of their league, but they just didn't really show up for most of this series. And we hadn't seen that this season.
Right. No, that's very true. So I kind of hijacked your intro there with Grayson Rodriguez, so you can kick it off for the Monday game.
Yeah, so O'Hearn and Hicks were the only two Orioles in the starting lineup to have faced Yu Darvish before. They were combined 0 for 8 with 4 strikeouts against them. Darvish had 6 Ks in this game. He moved past Hideo Nomo for the most by a Japanese born pitcher. Nomo was actually at the game. He works for San Diego.
Huh. I did not notice him there. I didn't realize that fact. That's pretty cool. Also, just a quick note, this continued Grayson's unfortunate streak of facing really good pitchers on the other side. I mean, Darvish isn't this year what he has been in the past, but the guy's still like a 5-time All-Star, I want to say. He's very good.
Yeah, he's very good. He's smooth. Top of the second, O'Hearn hit his 10th home run. He got his 40th RBI of the season to put the Orioles up 1-0. Did you catch that ball?
I did not catch that ball. I was on the opposite side of the stadium, but it was a very high, kind of slowly developing home run that was one of those balls that looks like it's going to be an easy out, and it just kind of kept drifting till it got just into the seats.
And we go to the top of the fifth. Hicks and Westberg single. Adley walks. Gunner is up with one out and the base is loaded. He hits a opposite field bases clearing double to make it 4-0 Orioles. That would be all they scored in this game.
Yeah, and that was actually the second inning in a row that they had 3 hits, except in the fourth they had only singles with a double play mixed in, and in the fifth they were able to get that extra base hit from Henderson and really put the O's on top for good.
That was pretty much it for them with the bat and the series and just the first 5 innings of game one.
Yeah, they scored 5 runs the rest of the 2.5 games, so I guess you're right.
So they got the ball to Felix, 2 on and 1 out with Machado up with the Padres down by 3. And this is what you pay Machado for. He would hit into a 5-4-3 double play.
Yeah, Batista wasn't great again. He made it interesting. He got Kim to pop out to start the ninth, but then he walked Tatis and Soto. And then, Tatis, Soto, Machado, and Kim before them. That's a really solid string of 4 hitters, and he was able to get out of it without allowing a run, but it was a little bit dicey too. Jacob Webb was better than him in the previous inning in the eighth.
Yeah, Webb has come out of nowhere. We'll get to him later. I did give out 3 stars in this game. Number 1, Grayson, 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run. It was a home run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. He basically 1 pitch out of 95 was bad. His ERA is down to 5.44, which is pretty impressive. It was almost 8 when he came back from the minor leagues.
Yeah, this was the longest start of his career and also the least walks he's allowed in any outing longer than 5 innings, with only the one. So it's not totally surprising that that ended up being his best outing as well, with just the 1 walk and 3 hits allowed.
His strikeouts are down a little bit since his return, and I think that's actually helping him keep his pitch count lower.
Right. No, I mean, there's a reason those ground ball pitchers tend to last longer in games because they're not striking out 12 batters every time. And as you said, you're just kind of hoping that you're able to keep the ball on the ground. Occasionally that won't happen, but for the most part, those guys tend to be really effective and good at lasting into the later innings.
And he seemed to have learned to trust his pitches more. Before, when he was up, he was just trying to throw it by guys, and you can't do that at the major leagues, really. Not on a level he was accustomed to in the minor leagues.
I agree. He's been very good, and it's been really encouraging to see him keep it up.
Yeah, it's been huge. Number 2 star, Gunner for the bases loaded double, and my number 3 star is the pitch clock. For the East Coasters watching a West Coast game, this was a crisp 2 hours and 16 minutes. If you ask me, baseball went from the worst sport to watch to the best overnight with the pitch clock. The average time is now on par with NHL and NBA games, and that's without any intermissions or half times.
Yeah, I think it's been great for the game. It is funny being on the West Coast as somebody who's not used to being out there. 5, 6 o'clock rolls around and I look at my phone and like half the games on the East Coast are over. I'm just like, what is going on? And I have to remind myself that we're 3 hours behind. It's always messes with me every time I'm out there, but it is kind of neat.
Yeah, you get football at like 10 in the morning.
Yeah, I've never been in, the West Coast for a football Sunday, but I think that would be highly enjoyable. And then everything's over at like 8 or 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I like when they have the London games and they start at like 9:30 and you just all day football.
Yeah, except most of the London games stink for some reason.
Yeah, they
It's like
send them like
it
the
seems like they're just
Jaguars.
always bad matchups, or just even if it's good teams, they just don't play well.
Yeah, the travel probably affects them here. So Tuesday, August 14th, Jack Flaherty versus Michael Waka, a couple former Cardinals.
Yeah, it was August 15th. Not that that matters, but
Ah,
um, 2 former Cardinals, and things went terribly for one of them, and very well for the other.
yeah, I did write down the 14th 2 days in a row.
Oh well, it doesn't matter. I think we'd all like to forget this one.
The Orioles had 7 players in the lineup who have homered off Waka. Waco's making his first start since July 1st, and the Padres are 44-10 when they have more hits than their opponents, which they would do in this game.
Yeah, the Padres got off quick in the first with Hassan Kim leading off with a double. And with 2 outs, Flaherty then walked Machado, Bogarts, and Cronenworth for the first run. So already a rough start, but the bases are still loaded. And the next batter was Gary Sanchez. And he hit a grand slam for a quick 5-0 lead, and things never got better after that.
I saw Gary Sanchez play against the Tides earlier this season. It was either with Rochester or Syracuse. I can't remember which one. I think it was Syracuse.
It must have been Syracuse because I know he was with the Mets, and I was honestly kind of surprised to see him in the lineup. Then I looked at his numbers. He now has 16 homers. Well, after this game, had 16 homers in 57 games, which is a 45 home run pace over 162. So that was kind of like, wow, how did I not realize where Gary Sanchez was playing, first of all, and then how is he doing so well?
Yeah, he fits in good there where the Padres are so loaded. He can just slide in and really, they can absorb his bad batting average. He was a career 304 with 4 grand slams and 58 RBI with the bases loaded before this grand slam.
Yeah, I mean, no matter who it was, Flaherty looked bad. And I guess giving that homer up to Sanchez was not quite as bad as I had thought, knowing that he has had a pretty good season, but that was a 34 pitch inning, and it was, we talked about how Flaherty's first start with the O's against Toronto was great. His second start was not very good, and this one was just terrible. So I'm hoping that trend doesn't continue.
Yeah, he still has a lot to prove. That first start was a lot of fun, but it was only one start. They really need him to be the solid veteran pitcher that they thought they were adding.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's as I told my friend, I think I mentioned this, who's a Cardinals fan. I said I'm not really expecting much from Flaherty, and he went out and proved me wrong in the first game. But when I say I'm not expecting much, I'm also not expecting 7 earned runs over 3 innings like this game.
Or 6 outs on 73 pitches. Took him 2 innings.
Yeah, I was gonna say after a 34 pitch first inning that was awful, he also went out in the second, and it took him 39 pitches to get through that one.
Also, he only went 3 innings, which is 9 outs. I think half of those outs were fly balls to the warning track, and the rest were strikeouts.
Yeah, he was allowing some deep fly balls. He then allowed Tatis to double. Soto had a 10 pitch at bat and walked. And then Machado doubled to score both of them for a 7-0 lead. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm just going to wander around the stadium because this game is clearly not going to go the Orioles' way.
Yeah, that is a plus being in a great ballpark like that. You can just get up and walk around, enjoy the park. The Orioles had a missed opportunity in the top of the fourth. They would load the bases with 1 out. Mountcastle extended his on base streak to 22 with a single. Then Mullins goes down swinging and Hayes goes down looking. The bottom of the fifth, Bestby is in. He would allow 3 runs on 4 hits. Kind of surprised he wasn't sent down the next day. That seems to be what they do with him. I'm glad he wasn't.
Yeah, it was not good for him. He allowed 3 doubles and a single in that inning, including a 2-run ground rule double by Ben Gamble, who was playing his first game of the season after being called up. So you never want that to happen when you're pitching, and this veteran who's clearly hasn't been good enough to be on a major league roster all year comes up and gets a 2 RBI double in their first game.
Yeah, top of the ninth, Orioles would score 2 runs. It didn't matter to anybody except fantasy baseball players. Hayes homered. Henderson drove in Frazier to make it 10-3, which was the final. 9 Padres had an extra base hit in this game. The only starter without a hit was Juan Soto, but he managed to draw 2 walks. Plus, the guy who replaced him in the lineup got a hit.
Yeah, and Fujinami and Bauman each pitched an inning, and then stud pitcher James McCann threw the ninth and didn't allow any runs.
Yeah, that's a secret bullpen arm we got lying in wait.
Yeah, I think I put on our Twitter account just jokingly, like, are we going to see one of these bench guys pitch tonight? And I mentioned McCann, and sure enough, it's one of those games where it's out of hand. You don't want to waste your bullpen, and he came in. I wonder how guys like that tend to do decently, and I think I don't know about your thoughts, but I think it's a combination of guys like trying to swing too hard on balls that are coming like 80 miles an hour, but also probably feeling a little bit bad and not quite wanting to tee off on a guy like that? What do you think?
I remember being at a Tides game earlier this season. I don't remember the player. It was one of the fringe players who was probably only on the roster for a week. The Tides were getting blown out, and they brought in random player, and he was throwing like 70s. And the first two pitches he threw the first two batters they got cranked, and I noticed Lewin Diaz motioned to him with his hand, telling him to like throw it up a little bit, stop throwing it straight, and then he got the next
Mm-hmm.
however many guys out. But yeah, I caught that where you don't want to just throw batting practice to him. Like, don't go in there and try and pitch. Just throw the ball in there.
Right. It's almost like the idea behind throwing an ephus pitch. Like, don't make it so straight and easy to hit. Just kind of toss it up there and hope that they don't hit it square and you're able to get them out.
Yeah, take them out of their comfort zone.
Right. Um, so I don't know if you have 3 stars for that game. I imagine if you do, they're all Padres, huh?
I do. Sometimes blowouts are fun to watch, not in terms of like enjoying the game, but enjoying the broadcast. Um, Sanchez, I gave him the third star for the Grand Slam. Number two, this is what I was talking about with the broadcast. Ben McDonald and Kevin Brown, they were discussing Blink 182. I had a friend see Blink 182. It must have been in 1995 at a Warp Tour, and he came back with the Cheshire Cat album, and we played the shit out of that thing. And this was way before they made it big. It was kind of cool watching their meteoric rise before they broke big, like 4 years later. The
So
number
that album was before Dude Ranch, even, right?
Right, yeah. So it was to the point where we were looking forward to the Dude Ranch album coming out.
Yeah, that was the first one I was really aware of at all.
Yeah, yeah. It was cool getting in on them early. And the number one, the ice cream girl, Ben and Kevin Brown did commentary on a little girl eating an ice cream that was bigger than her head.
I did not see that as, I was at the game, but I don't think I got. Oh, I do have an ice cream story. I think it was this game. I don't remember, but I got in line probably like 8th inning. It was late, but the O's were getting crushed, so I didn't care about missing some of the game and just decided I wanted some ice cream. There were a bunch of people ahead of me, and I waited in line for like 15 minutes. I get up there. I kid you not. As I'm walking up to the register, because it's my turn to order, they say, "We're completely out of ice cream." I was like, "Are you kidding?" Um, and they were able to get like this little bit of vanilla out of the machine, put it in a cup, and just gave it to me for free. But then I went back to this other place next door that I didn't realize had ice cream. They still had vanilla, but no toppings. So I got a cone from them, then went back to the other place and was like, hey, can I get some toppings on this? Because they were like closing down. And this guy just gave me a bag of mini Oreos. He's like, here you go, just take these.
Oh
It
yeah,
was very silly. So, yeah, I would have forgotten about that if you didn't bring up this ice cream girl, but that was kind of funny. I
yeah.
wasn't
She
mad
was.
about it. I was just like, really? The chances of me coming up here and you're out right now, it was just funny.
Do you still have? Did you eat all the mini Oreos that night?
Oh, yeah, of course. No, if you know me, you know I would crush the mini Oreos immediately after finishing the ice cream.
That's a shame you didn't end up on the broadcast just housing a bag of mini Oreos.
I was sitting out in that grassy knoll area in right field by the end of that, so I think I blended in. Nobody really noticed.
So that brings us to Wednesday. I have the wrong date written down again. The Orioles at Padres. Dean Kramer versus Blake Snell in the rubber match.
Yeah, this is one where Kramer's been pretty good, but as I mentioned before, Snell was leading the league in ERA coming into this one, and he didn't honestly look phenomenal, but he was very good. And Kramer wasn't too bad himself, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, the Orioles had won Dean's last 7 starts in 10 of 11. Dean Kramer and Kyle Gibson are the only two starters to make it through every turn of the rotation this season.
Yeah, I think it's one of those instances where Kramer kind of did what he does and Snell did what he does, and Snell's just a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, Blake Snell's floor is still pretty good. Dean had a quality start in this one. People were complaining about it, which I didn't understand. Like you said, he does what he does.
Yeah, I mean, he went 6 innings, allowed 3 earned runs on 5 hits and 2 walks with 4 strikeouts. That's honestly a pretty typical Dean Kramer start. I think his ERA is right about 4.5, which is what that math comes out to. So,
Yeah, he's always solid. Did you know he's related to somebody who like created the Power Rangers? That came up on the Adam Jones podcast recently.
no, I did not. Is he
Yeah,
from California though, Kramer? I
I
think
think
he is.
so. Yeah, I'm not
At least
sure, but
he's got the hair and that like attitude. You can just kind of tell he's a Californian.
yeah, it probably would have been a dream of his to play for the Dodgers. I wonder how disappointed he was when that trade happened.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The top of the first, Adley singled and worked his way around the bases on a wild pitch, two flyouts. Santander got an RBI sacrifice fly to put the Orioles up 1-0.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of O's games lately. We talked about that Astros series and then this one where a lot of teams, O's or their opponent, a lot of teams were getting on the board really quickly. And this was the O's turn, but they were not able to hold the lead because the Padres got to Kramer in the third.
Yeah, Dean got in trouble with a leadoff walk to the ninth hitter, back to back singles, and then now you're facing Soto and Machado. Two more hard hit singles by Bogarts and Cronenworth, and that's 3 runs on 4 hits, a 28 pitch inning, and San Diego's up 3-1.
Yeah, as we said, the Padres have that really tough top half of the order, and he wasn't able to get out of that unscathed. But the O's did get back to within 3-2 with a Mountcastle solo home run off Snell in the sixth, and Mountcastle stayed hot. But that would be the last run that Snell or anyone would give up for the Padres.
Yeah, it takes us to the bottom of the seventh, and Fujinami is in. He would allow a home run, 4-3 Padres. Tatis singles, and here's where things get weird. CNL Perez comes in from the bullpen. He picks off Tatis, who's running to second, but the ball gets away, sending Tatis to third. No urgency from Perez with Tatis on third base, and Tatis just takes off and steals home to make it 5-2, which would be the final score.
Yeah, that might be the least contested steal of home that I've ever seen. Like, there was not even an attempted throw. It was just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it was like he was looking at his phone or something.
And you know what's kind of funny? I don't believe in jinxes or anything, but I happened to be hanging out next to the Orioles bullpen in the couple innings right before that. I met an Orioles fan, a few of them actually, and we were just chatting and standing like right next to the fence at the end of their bullpen in center field. So I saw Fujinami warming up, I saw Perez warming up, and then they both came in and stunk. It was just kind of ironic that that's when I was out there, and then they both came in and did not get the job done whatsoever.
Yeah, Perez has been killer lately. Other than that appearance, Fujinami, the jury's still out. This He's got something there. We'll see. I don't know if he's ever going to put it together or not for this season. It might be too late. He's got what, maybe 3 weeks to figure it out.
I was thinking about him today. Like, he could go one of two ways in his career. A light could come on and he could end up being a nasty pitcher, or he could just be one of those guys who you think back in 10 years and be like, oh, remember Fujinami? He had really great stuff, but he just could not throw a strike, you know? Because the talent is there, but I don't know the odds of him suddenly becoming good enough with his command to be that effective.
I saw he still has 3 options left, so I do think he'll be back next year in some form. Like if you remember Cano last season compared to this season, it might be that kind of path.
That is true. You never know what the Orioles coaching staff might see in him that he can work on in the offseason or in spring training, because I'd imagine you don't get a lot of opportunities to really change things up in the regular season because you're not going to want to do that at the risk of being terrible. But frankly, when he's as bad as he is, you might as well.
Yeah, his contract's up after this year, but like I said, he has the option. So, and yeah, I think they're going to re-sign him, and I think he'll be back next year in some form.
Yeah, we'll see. But speaking of a guy associated with the Orioles who's got some good stuff, and that is former Oriole farmhand Josh Hader, who got his 27th save to go along with a 0.84 ERA. Bautista has more strikeouts, but Hader's ERA is half of what Bautista's is right now. He's had a great season.
Yeah, he's going to get a monster contract from somebody this season. Probably the Padres. They seem to like to give them out. Another Orioles farmhand in this one was Manny Machado. He was only 1 for 12 this series with 2 RBI, 1 walk, and 1 run scored. So even though the Padres won 2 or 3, he really didn't contribute too much.
Yeah, I would agree. Just looking at the notes from what I wrote down, I would think that Kim, Tatis, and Soto were their most effective offensive players. And it was interesting. I was talking to a Padres fan at one of the games, and he was saying how Kim has really turned it on and become really good this year. But the last couple of years, he's been in San Diego, and he said for whatever reason, the fans just love him because he just goes balls out and always tries really hard. And they have this 3-syllable Ha Song Kim chant that they do, and they just love the guy. And I guess this fan was telling me he thinks Kim is finally comfortable and doing really well. All right, so next up, the O's headed a little bit north to Oakland. We've already seen them this year. Not a whole lot has changed. The A's are the worst team in baseball. They had three more losses than Kansas City, who was second worst going into this series. Interesting fact, though, in their previous 30 games, the A's were 3-7 in each set of 10. So they went 3-7 in their last 10, 3-7 in their 10 before that, and 3-7 in their previous 10. So at least they've been consistently bad. They also had the worst offense in baseball, and they're the worst at preventing other teams from scoring the least runs per game and allowing the most per game.
Yeah, watching their defense this weekend was kind of tough. Seeing the Athletics try and play baseball for 27 innings this weekend made me realize, like, you really should just try and do anything in life, like stuff you have no business doing, like a podcast, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel bad for the fans. It's not their fault that the A's suck. I mean, the A's suck because the ownership wants them to. They traded all their good players away. Just a couple years ago, they were good. And you look at the list of guys they are recent former A's players, it's pretty solid. So they're bad on purpose. It sucks for the fans. And this is honestly a series, even though it was on the road. I would have been disappointed if the O's lost any of these games because the A's are just that bad.
Yeah, this felt like practice this weekend. It was fun to watch from an Orioles perspective, but yeah, you do feel for the A's fans. Billy Beane, who was their longtime architect, he was a former Tide. They even depicted him in his Tide uniform in the Moneyball movie.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen that in forever. I would not have remembered that part.
So the Athletics play at Ricky Henderson Field at, I don't know, Oakland Coliseum. It's Ricky Henderson Field. I know that.
Uh-huh.
And I have a concourse fact that Ricky Henderson is in. Ricky Henderson has walked 796 times in his career when he was leading off an inning. That's more walks when leading off an inning than Lou Brock, Roberto Clemente, Ernie Banks, or Kirby Puckett walked in their entire careers.
That is impressive. There's a book about Ricky Henderson. I want to say Howard Bryant wrote it. I've been meaning to read it. It's definitely on my list because I honestly don't know a whole lot about Ricky Henderson. I know he has multiple records and he played forever, but I don't really know much about his career besides the fact that he was there a long time and he bounced around a lot.
Yeah, he played for the aforementioned Padres even.
That he did. Um, as I told you before we started recording, I didn't watch much of this series at all. So I'm going to let you take the reins and just interject with my stupid commentary wherever I see fit.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of Orioles talk as the Athletics really don't do too much. This was Kyle Gibson versus Francisco Perez in his first career start. This is the 15th time the Oakland went with an opener. They were 0 5 in their starts made by an opener. Mark Kotze actually texted Brandon Hyde about the pitching change before the game, which seems like a classy move. He didn't have to do that.
Hmm. That reminds me of that Alabama coach who got fired for, for sharing secrets about his pitching staff.
Yeah, I forgot about that. He'll never work again. When an opener fails, it is like catastrophic for your team. I understand why you kind of want to try it sometimes, but when they give up runs in the first inning, it is a disaster.
Yeah, I think that's never really the plan, right? It's like, oh, we're gonna start this guy, he'll be fresh and he'll give us an inning or two without any runs. When it doesn't happen, like you said, your plan is suddenly all messed up.
Yeah, so Orioles jump out early on Perez. Gunnar singled. Santander lined one off of Perez to bring up Mountcastle with runners on the corners. He'd pick up another RBI on a bloop in between three Oakland defenders. Mullins' first pitch swinging, he hit a double to drive into to put the Orioles up 3-0.
As another quick start, part of the O's. It's just in their DNA, I guess, to either score or allow runs in the first inning because it looks like that's what the A's did at the bottom of the first.
Top of the second, they're right back at it. Gunnar hit his 20th home run, 438 feet, 111.2 miles per hour exit velocity. It went into the second deck. A fan actually threw it back onto the field to the dismay of the people he was sitting with, which was pretty funny. It also won David Gilly from Pasadena $500.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say except Gunner's been awesome and it's fun to watch him become such a good, solid player. And he showed even more of that in today's game.
This is going to sound ridiculous, but it's almost like watching a boy become a man the way he's playing now. He has to have Rookie of the Year locked up, I think.
Yeah, I think it was close between him and Josh Young, but Young broke his wrist or his hand or something, so Gunner definitely has the leg up now.
Kyle Gibson wasn't great in this game.
Yeah, he finished with a line of 5 innings with 4 earned runs, 9 hits, no walks, and 6 strikeouts. So, I mean, if you look at the walks and strikeouts, but 9 hits in 5 innings is not where you want to be. And it's really the second outing in a row that he's had where he's allowed a lot of hits. I think that Seattle start, I want to say he allowed like 12 hits in 5 innings or something like that.
Yeah, he's been disappointing lately. He was shaking off Adley a lot in this game. I kind of wonder what that was about. He worked a lot harder than he should have had to.
Well, maybe he should call more or throw more of what Agley calls next time out.
Yeah, I wonder if that had something to do with it. I did kind of make up an excuse for him that he had to spend so long in between innings early on with the Orioles, having a hit parade. But he's a veteran. I shouldn't have to make excuses for him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He's been around long enough. He knows how to deal with that.
Top of the fourth, Hayes scored on a Westberg sacrifice fly. Rutschman would line a single. Yeah, the hit parade continued. 6-2 Orioles. Gunnar would get his third hit by the fourth inning, driving in Frazier to make it 7-2. Top of the fifth, O'Hearn singled. Frazier drove him in. Westberg drives in Frazier. Rutschman doubles. It's his third hit already. At this point, the Orioles are 13 for 28, and it's the fifth inning.
That's a lot of hits. And it looks like, it's kind of funny looking at the box score. the O's would score a few, and then the A's would get like one or two back pretty quickly. So Oakland, in their own way, was kind of staying in it. They just weren't scoring as many times as the Orioles were.
Yeah, one of those was from known Oriole killer Brent Rooker. He seems to be the only guy who's figured out the Orioles for the Athletics.
Yeah, he's like Danny Jansen on the Blue Jays this year for the O's. Luckily, he's not in the division.
So I gave out 3 stars here. Number one, Gunner, 3 for 5, 2 runs, 3 RBI. Adley, 3 for 4, 1 run, 1 walk. And Adam Frazier, he was 1 for 5 with 2 runs and 1 RBI, and he made a great play to end the third inning.
Very nice. Good to see.
Saturday, Cole Irvin versus Ken Waldachuk.
Yep. And this was a 7-2 Orioles victory. I saw like the second half of this game, so I can interject a little later on, but take it away from the top.
Did you see Ken Waldachuk pitch at all?
Yeah, I saw his last inning or two, I want to say.
Did he remind you of anybody?
I don't know. He's like a pretty tall lefty, kind of like a Cliff Lee, maybe. Is that stupid to say?
No, that's good. I got the feeling he has watched 1,000 hours of Randy Johnson tape. I'm not saying his stuff is like Randy Johnson's, but his motion, his follow through, being a tall lefty. Yeah, he's watching a lot of Randy Johnson.
It's a good guy to watch if you're trying to be a good pitcher, and like you said, if you have the stuff too, that's a big part of why Randy Johnson was so good.
Yeah. Top of the second, McKenna, who was recalled before the game, he got a chance with Santander out of the lineup. Santander was removed Friday night with reported back spasms. If you're going to miss a series, it might as well be against Oakland. I noticed they gave Mateo a lot of playing time this weekend too.
Yeah, I mean hindsight's 2020, and it's fine that he missed those games.
The back issue might explain his recent struggles.
I can't imagine having a back issue would be good when you're up at the plate. I mean, we saw Aaron Hicks just miss time and then come back for a game, and now he's back again on the IL with a back issue. So I can't imagine really for any position, whether you're a pitcher or a hitter, that having back problems is easy to work through.
I guess this is a good chance to get into Colton Cowser. So with Hicks going back on the injured list, were you surprised they went with McKenna over Cowser?
No, not at all, to be honest. Cowser just hasn't hit at all, and you can't keep a guy like that on the roster, no matter if he's 23 or 28. You just need somebody who's going to be consistent. And I'm not to say McKenna's a phenomenal player. He's very solid. I think he offers the same qualities that Cowser does right now, which is speed and defense. And then at the plate, McKenna's just more experienced, and at this point, he's better.
Yeah, they obviously trust McKenna more than Cowser right now. Cowser will be fine down the road, but I wasn't really surprised either. Cowser had a golden opportunity and just didn't take advantage of it. It says a lot though that Stowers didn't get another chance. They might view him as see you later.
Yeah, I mean, I joked about Stowers when we talked about Cowser at some point in a different episode, because that's kind of how Cowser performed too. So I think McKenna can at least give you some quality at bats, and unlike Cowser, I think he's actually going to swing the bat. That was my biggest frustration watching Cowser, was I don't think he was nearly aggressive enough.
Yeah, so McKenna would then strike out swinging to end the inning, stranding Hayes at third. So McKenna didn't really take advantage of his opportunities this weekend either.
After everything we just said, at least he swung the bat, though. I can say that.
Yeah, he's in. Like, he's trusted, but I was happy to see him get some opportunities. That's for sure.
Right.
The A's actually went up 1-0 in this one in the bottom of the second on a solo home run. Hayes would then hit his 12th home run, 356 feet to tie it up. And McCann, who was on a 7-game hitting streak, 10 for 21, 8 RBI, and 4 doubles, he would add another solo home run to make it 2-1.
Yeah, this is exactly where I turned on the game. When I flipped it on, Hayes was rounding the bases after his home run. So I was like, "Oh, cool. Good timing." And that tied it up, and then as you said, McCann hit a bomb, and I think I saw online that he's been hitting like 380 something since the All-Star break, and that's definitely not every game he's appearing in, but it's still great to see that he's offering more at the plate.
Yeah, his average is up to 243. It seems like it was just 180 like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I mean that's something that basically no team has a backup catcher that can hit at all. So if they can get even a decent showing out of McCann when he's in there, that's a huge advantage, I think.
I could see McCann playing behind the plate a lot more in the playoffs than anybody realizes is possible.
That's a interesting point. At this point I'm still not convinced 100% the Orioles are going to make the playoffs. You can never be too confident. So if they get there, we'll see.
Yeah, it's fair. It's easy to take it for granted how well they're doing, but at the same time, like, yeah, it's wild that they're 30 games over 500.
Yeah, I mean they should make the playoffs, but I'm just not going to say anything until that happens.
Yeah, especially with Toronto and Boston just lurking, like Tampa Bay. I'm pretty sure they're cooked.
Yeah, I mean McClanahan out, and then the whole Wander Franco thing, which I don't need to get into, but yeah, that's not good.
Fujinami would come in the bottom of the sixth and allow a solo home run to tie it up at two, taking the win away from Cole Irvin.
Yeah, that's Fuji's, I think, second outing in a row where he allowed a home run. So I don't think I have anything special or extra to say about him because we've said it all before.
Yeah, because of Fujinami, we went to extra innings. Cionel Perez was great in this. I should touch on him real quick. Cano came in. He would allow a single. He fielded a sacrifice bunt for the first out. Perez comes in. He was lights out. He struck out two in a row. He had an intentional walk in there, but yeah, he struck out two to end the inning. So because of Fujinami, we had to go to extra innings. With Frazier ghost running, he would go to third base on a wild pitch. Adley walks, so there's no outs, runners on the corners for Mountcastle. He would single up the middle to a drawn in infield. It's 3-2 Orioles. Gunner hit by a pitch, bases loaded for Westberg. Sacrifice fly, Rutschman scores 4-2 Orioles. Hayes would then plate Mountcastle on a fielder's choice and throwing error, and McCann would add another one to make it 7-2, which would be our final score.
Yeah, and that Mountcastle run that he scored reminded me of Mateo a few games back, where he was on third base and just took off on contact, and it was a really risky play, and he barely got in there, but it was nice aggressive base running, and scoring five in extra innings is usually going to get the job done, and that's what happened.
The bottom of the 10th, Jacob Webb would load the bases, and I was a little worried we were going to find out why the Angels DFA'd him, but he really turned it on and struck out all three in a row after that.
Yeah, and it was largely due to his changeup, and it was just weird to me how the beginning of the inning his changeup was nowhere near the plate, and then suddenly he just found it, and it was just diving right below the strike zone. And no, I don't think anybody was taking the changeup; they were all just swinging and missing. It was
Yeah,
it
so
was
that
fascinating to see that evolution in one inning.
I was gonna say that all three strikeouts were swinging, and yeah, they were just flailing, like they were falling over.
Right, that was a great combination. It reminded me of Cano at the beginning of the year when his changeup was really good.
This gave the Orioles their 40th road win, most in the major leagues. Road record is kind of the ultimate sign of a good team.
I would agree with that.
I did give out 3 stars. Number one to Predators fan James McCann, 2 for 5 with a home run, 3 RBI. He caught Ruiz stealing. Number 2, Hayes, 1 for 4, 2 runs, 2 RBI, home run, and a walk. And number 3, Cole Irvin, 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. He did allow a home run. The last time he faced Oakland, he was sent to AAA after the game.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a friend from grad school who is a big A's fan, and he's obviously very bummed that they're moving. But he texted me and said, "I'm here at the A's Orioles game, gonna see A's legend Cole Irvin get his second win of the season." And unfortunately, he didn't get the win, but the O's won the game. So
Did you watch Silicon Valley on HBO?
I think I saw a couple episodes, but not the whole thing.
Cole Irvin looks like Ehrlich Bachman, TJ Miller's character.
I know that guy. I can see that a little bit.
So this brought us to the Sunday bloodbath, a 12-1 win for the Orioles.
Yeah, I didn't see any of this game, but before we get started, I want to make sure that we don't forget to mention who pitched for the Orioles because we tend to do that with this guy.
Yeah, Kyle Bradish. He gets all the run support.
Yeah, I mean, but he really didn't need much run support. He ended up going 6 innings, allowing 2 hits, no runs, with just 1 walk and 8 strikeouts. I mean, he was lights out in this one, and the O's didn't need much more than they only allowed 1 all game, so he got a lot of run support but didn't need it.
Load the bases in the top of the first with 1 out, 2 singles, and a walk for Urias is at the plate. He would hit a 5-4-3 double play ball. He was ruled safe. Oakland would challenge, but a run scored. Challenge was upheld. So it's 1-0 Orioles. Mullins is now up with 2 on and 2 out. He's hitting .310 with 2 home runs and 18 RBI on the season with runners in scoring position, but he would strike out swinging. So this game could have been even uglier for Oakland.
I'm just looking at the box score now. The O's scored in each of the first 4 innings, which is, I don't know the last time they've done that.
Yeah, this was a bloodbath. It got to the point where I stopped taking notes. In the top of the second, Jorge Mateo hit maybe the most casual inside the park home run I've ever seen. It was misplayed by the center fielder. And then the cutoff man had a bad throw. I was wondering if Carroll Taylor of Goldsboro, Maryland, won money for an inside the park home run.
I think you should, right? It goes into the box score as a home run.
Yeah, this would have been a double against a competent team.
Well, it is what it is. They're still on a major league field, so the stats all count the same.
Top of the third, there's 2 on after Henderson's double. Hayes lines one off of the pitcher, J.P. Sears, scoring 2. Hayes would be thrown out trying for what would have been basically an infield double.
Maybe he was thinking the same thing you were about the A's competence, because it sounds a bit much, an infield double.
Yeah. Top of the fourth, Mountcastle, 3-run home run, 17th of the year, 439 feet with a 112 mile per hour exit velocity, 7-0 Orioles. Top of the seventh, Gunnar would hit one off the foul pole for his 21st home run and his 60th RBI already. Remember how low his RBI total was after like 2 months? He's probably over doubled that since then.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I'm not going to bother probably, but if we looked back at when that was that we were talking about it earlier in the season and where he stacks up in all of baseball since then, he's got to be pretty high.
The A's were swept for the 17th time this season. I got so bored during this one. Well, not bored, but I ended up counting how many guys on the Orioles roster played for the Tides at one time, and it's 19.
I think that's a good sign. Seems like, I'm sure a couple of those guys were acquired from outside the organization, but I would imagine that also shows that they're generally pretty good at drafting and developing players.
Unlike the Anaheim Angels, who have promoted their first round draft pick already from like a month ago.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That has to come from ownership, right? Just like, I got a new toy, I want to see it.
I would think so. who is Manassian? Is that his name? The GM of the Angels.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
that's a
I don't
GM.
know what his track record is. I'd imagine he knows baseball pretty well. So who knows what the situation is between him and the owner, if he has any say in it or not. But that is very interesting and not something I would really want to happen if my team was doing that. I was just going to say I saw online today that the Nationals are promoting Dylan Cruz to Double A, and he was like the second or third pick in the draft and has just absolutely crushed Single A, and even he is only going to Double A, and this other guy is going all the way up to the majors already.
Yeah, the Pirates are probably going to regret not taking him. Every time the Pirates take a pitcher, it never works out.
We'll see. There's a first time for everything.
I guess it worked out with Garrett Cole to some extent, but that's like 1 out of 25.
Right.
And they traded him the first chance they got.
Of
But yeah,
course.
3 stars. Gunnar Henderson, 4 for 5, 3 runs, 2 RBI, 1 home run. He's slugging .484 on the season, which is second behind O'Hearn, but O'Hearn has 170 less at bats than Henderson. Henderson would have had a cycle here, but he went for the double instead of stopping at first. Would you have stopped at first?
I mean, I don't know what I would have done, but I think I like that Henderson didn't. I like the attitude of playing hard and getting every base that you can, and also not. It reminds me of who was it, Ricky Davis in the NBA, who like shot on his
Yep.
own basket to get a rebound for the triple double. Like that's the opposite of what Henderson did because he easily could have stopped it first. So I like that he didn't do that.
I had the same thought of Ricky Davis. Yeah, I don't think Gunnar would have been happy with himself if he stopped at first for the cycle. Plus, he had a cycle last year with the Tides. He doesn't need another one.
Yeah, I mean, I just like what that shows about him as a player for sure.
And as a person, like he's worried about the win. He doesn't need he didn't need a shiny cycle next to his name.
Yeah, I mean, when he signs
Number
his
two,
next contract, you're
Bradish.
not going to care about the amount of cycles he has. So,
Right. Yeah, hopefully that contract is signed soon. Bradish, 6 innings pitched, 2 hits, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk. He was absolutely on cruise control. He struck out 7 of his first 9. And the third star I gave to the Oakland fans. We talked about them a minute ago. They've been through a lot this season. Usually when like a team moves, you have a lame duck season, but this move isn't even set in stone yet. This could be like a lame duck like 3 or 4 years before they actually move.
yeah, I mean, I said it earlier in the season. It almost feels like the plot of Major League, where the ownership is just trying to make them so bad. And they're 34-90 now after this series. That is just, it's almost incomprehensibly bad.
Yeah, it was hard to watch. I only had to do it for 3 days.
Looking at the box score, it looks like the Orioles had 6 different batters with at least 2 hits in this game, which rarely happens. Well, I mean, as we said though off the top, this is what you want to do against a team that's so bad. I would not have been happy if they lost any games to the A's just because they've been so bad.
So you're saying they didn't need Jackson Holiday this weekend to beat the A's?
They certainly did not. I don't think they need him at all this year. Let him do his thing in the minors. He's what, 19 years old now?
Yeah, I totally agree. He can spend the rest of the season with Bowie. As much as I want to see him on the Tides when I go this week, it's just not necessary. This isn't a team trying to fill holes anymore. Like this roster is crunched. You can't even get deserving guys like Norby and Ortiz on the roster right now. Now you want to have Holiday leapfrog both of them?
Yeah, I mean, there's been rumors. I would be very, very, very surprised if the Orioles actually called him up this year, mainly because they're still in it. They're second best record in baseball. I mean, you don't need a 19-year-old on your team unless he's clearly showing that he's one of the 23 or 25 best players that you have in your organization, which maybe is the case. That would be pretty cool, but I just don't see that right now. And it's not a knock on Holiday at all. I'm super excited about his future, and I think he's an incredible prospect. But to have a 19-year-old middle infielder come up when you're one of the best teams in the league just doesn't add up for me.
Especially what we just saw Kowser go through. Like, you're not when you call somebody up, you're not getting the minor league numbers with them. It doesn't translate like that.
Yeah, I mean it never does. I remember when you said that for whatever reason, Matt Weeder just popped into my head. I mean that guy absolutely destroyed the minor leagues for several years, and when he came up, I think his career average was probably 100 points lower in the major leagues.
Obviously, we didn't get to discuss this last season because we didn't have a podcast, but I loved how Elias handled Adley's call up last year, where it wasn't done with a bunch of fanfare. It was kind of announced late at night, and he showed up basically on a Saturday morning. Where Weeders, they announced a couple days in advance, and Weeders still had to play minor league games in between the date he was set to debut. And he would say in an Athletic article last year done by Dan Connolly that wasn't easy for him to play in those minor league games, knowing he had this major league debut hovering over his head.
And unless the Orioles had multiple days off, why would you say you're calling up a guy and then not do it right away? That's kind of a weird move to begin with. But let alone putting all that pressure on him, like you said.
Yeah, it was clearly for marketing, and I just don't get the sense that Elias is worried about marketing the team other than the on-field product. He's not going to call up Holiday to sell tickets.
No, at this point, nothing else is going to sell tickets for the O's. If I know they're not selling out every game, but if they're not selling out now, then calling up Holiday, I don't think is going to do it.
Yeah, I'd be surprised to see him before the All-Star break next season, to be honest with you.
We'll see. As you mentioned, they got a lot of middle infield prospects, so they have plenty of other guys who can fill in, and that's a great problem to have.
So I have a quick game for Cameo. There are several active Orioles on Cameo: Adam Frazier, Tyler Wells, Kyle Gibson. Who do you think the cheapest of those three are?
Wells.
Yep, he's $30.
Okay.
Kyle Gibson undercut Adam Frazier. Can you guess by how much?
It's probably like 50 and 49.
Frazier's 49. Kyle Gibson undercut him at 44.
Nice.
Aubrey Huff is on here for $100.
Ooh, I bet that guy, I don't know what he would say on there.
He'd probably fly off the handle. Adam Jones is on here for an interesting amount. What do you think Adam Jones is going for? It's an interesting number.
Interesting number. Well, he wore number 10. So, I mean, you could make it 100, 110. That's what I'm going to say.
69.
That did cross my mind, but I was like, nah, probably not.
Yeah. The Rafael Palmeiro is going for $6 more at $75. Friend of the show, Chris Sabo, is on here for a stupid amount. He only has 4 reviews, so I don't think he's selling very many. I watched one of his sample videos. It was very awkward. Do you have a guess for how much Chris Sabo is going for?
I mean, you said it's a stupid amount, but it doesn't sound like it should be very high. I'm going to say 125.
Double that, 250.
That's how capitalism works, right? If somebody wants to pay it, Chris Sabo probably is like, I don't care if I do these or not. I'll make a high price. And if somebody wants to pay it, then I'll make one.
For $99 more, you can get Hall of Famer Reggie Jackson.
Okay, that's legit. What did you say? Sabo was 250.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jackson's 349.
349. James McCann is on here for $99.
Okay.
Oh, Andy Chavez is on here. He was your apology or jersey number a couple weeks ago. His picture is his catch.
I'm sure it is. I bet it's 98% Mets fans who would hit him up.
Yeah, he's $36. Any other notable on here? Roberto Alomar, former Diamondbacks great. He's on here for 120.
I bet you a lot of these guys don't really want to make them, and that's why they set their prices where they are. That would be my
The
guess.
few
Especially
samples.
the current players, they all make so much money, they don't care.
Eddie Murray is on here. You got to guess how much Eddie Murray is?
275.
150. And
Okay.
his image is, it looks like he has a really cool like Hall of Fame room. Behind him is just a bunch of baseballs. One of the samples I watched, you could see his like gold gloves in the background.
Nice. That's cool. That's what you want to see. Get that inside behind the scenes look into his memorabilia room or whatever it is. His man cave.
Who do you think costs more, Fred Lynn or Robinson Chirinos?
Well, I would imagine Freglin should cost more, so since you're asking, it's probably Chirinos.
Should have went with your gut. Fred Lynn is $75 and Robinson Chirinos is $70.
Oh, damn. It's closer than it should be.
And the last one on here is Rick Dempsey. He is 150.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I got for Cameo games.
Very nice. Yeah, I bought one of those for a friend once, but I kind of forgot Cameo existed. Should we go to our apologies? Yeah, so my apology is a really random guy that I had never heard of when I was researching the number 22. And this is the guy from the Orioles era of the franchise, so not the St. Louis Browns, that has worn number 22 the second longest behind Jim Palmer. And his name is Joe Ginsberg. His full name is Myron Nathan Ginsberg, but he was called Little Joe after his father, and the name stuck. His family moved from New York City to Detroit, where his father ran a saloon 5 blocks from Briggs Stadium, which later became known as Tiger Stadium, where they played until 1999. He was signed by the Tigers and began his career there, which was probably pretty sweet for him growing up down the street. He was a catcher, played 695 games over 13 years for 7 different teams. 5 of those years were spent with Baltimore and another 5 in Detroit, and that's where his best years were as a Tiger. He caught a no hitter by Virgil Trucks in 1952. I feel like you might have brought him up, or maybe it's just that name is sticking in my brain for some reason. But he was an Oriole from 56 to 60. He hit a total of 5 home runs with 56 RBIs and a 219 batting average. He was acquired via trade from Kansas City. And one thing that's interesting about Ginsberg is that he accrued a total WAR of zero point 0.0 in his career. So he's literally a replacement level player. But alas, he wore 22 in an O's uniform for longer than anyone but Jim Palmer. So he is my apology for today.
Yeah, apologies to Joe Ginsberg.
Joe Ginsberg. Next time Detroit and Baltimore comes up in Immaculate Grid, I'll use him.
Oh, good one. No, I brought up Ozzy Virgil, not Virgil
Okay.
Trucks.
Ozzy Virgil, Virgil Trucks. Same difference.
Yeah, I'm curious about Virgil Trucks now that I might look him up later.
Who's yours?
Yeah, so since I didn't use Sammy Sosa as my number 21 last week, I shoehorned him in here as my apology.
All right.
He started and finished his career with the Texas Rangers. Sosa was traded at the 1989 trade deadline to the White Sox in a deal sending Harold Baines to Texas. 3 years later, the White Sox would trade Sosa to the Cubs for George Bell, whose brother Juan Bell was a failed Orioles prospect in the late 80s. George Bell was the 1987 American League MVP while with the Toronto Blue Jays. Sosa would explode with the Cubs, both physically and figuratively, becoming the first player in history to hit 60 or more home runs 3 times. In 2004, he missed some time due to a violent sneeze causing back spasms. On January 28th, 2005, the Cubs traded Sosa to the Baltimore Orioles for Jerry Hairston Jr., Mike Fontenot, and pitcher Dave Crowthers. Sosa agreed to waive a clause that would have guaranteed his 2006 salary to facilitate the deal. Sosa would go on to bat 221 with 14 home runs and 45 RBI in 102 games. Sosa and Palmeiro became the first teammates with 500 career home runs each. In 2006, he turned down a minor league contract with the Washington Nationals. Sosa would sit out the season before accepting an invitation to spring training with the Rangers. He made the team for the 2007 season. Sosa owns the record for having homered in the most ballparks with 45. I got to see Sosa hit his 57th home run on September 4th, 1998 in the chase for Maris. This was off Jason Schmidt at Three Rivers Stadium. We bought tickets from a scalper promising home run seats, and he wasn't kidding. As soon as we sat down, home run went like 10 rows in front of us. I still have the Pirate Parrot plush toy that was given away that day.
That's cool. It's cool that you got to see that. I remember the same thing when Bonds was chasing the record that McGuire set, and we were in San Francisco for a day, and I tried to convince my dad to go, and he wouldn't. And he'll probably listen to this, so he'll remember. But
Yeah,
yeah. Sosa, looking at his numbers, like he had 4 years in a row where he had an OPS over 1,000. That's crazy.
yeah, I was pumped when the Orioles traded for him. I was still watching casually back then, but he didn't really provide anything exciting that season other than
No,
appearing in the Orioles uniform.
but his last season, you mentioned with the Rangers, he hit 21 homers with 92 RBIs. It's pretty soft for a 38-year-old.
I looked up his 57th home run to see if I could see us because I remember we were on the broadcast that night. Like when I saw the highlight, you could see us stand up when the ball came towards us, but it's all
Uh-huh.
blurry. You can't make it out.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a guy, one of those guys we've mentioned before who definitely used steroids and is definitely not going to get voted into the Hall of Fame by the writers, but maybe someday he'll get in some other way.
Yeah. Yep. So that's all. That's all for this week. You got a preview for the upcoming series?
Yeah, so the Orioles are going to return home to Camden Yards after this West Coast swing. They're going to welcome the familiar Toronto Blue Jays for 3, and then the Colorado Rockies for 3. I'm not sure if they've played Colorado this season. I don't recall. But
I don't think so.
so basically, a good team and a bad team is what they have on deck. So hopefully they'll come out with a solid record again after going 4-2 this week and continue to hold on to their lead in the AL East.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.